Leo stood near the open nose of the private jet and felt the cold air of the hangar on his face. He was 17 and already used to being the smallest person in the room. He wore a plain workshirt, faded jeans, and gloves that never stayed clean for long. The hangar smelled like fuel, metal, and old rubber. The jet looked like a sleeping beast with its smooth white body and dark windows. Most people stared at the jet like it was a king. Leo stared at it like it was a puzzle. He did not arrive here by luck. He arrived here by showing up every day and learning faster than anyone expected. He started as the kid who carried tools and cleaned up bolts from the floor. He listened more than he spoke. He watched how the senior workers moved, how they checked panels, how they argued when something went wrong. Some of them were kind. Some of them were sharp with their words. Leo learned to keep his calm and let his work talk for him. The morning started with a problem that made everyone tense. The private jet was scheduled to depart before noon. A client wanted it ready, polished, and perfect. But the jet did not want to cooperate. When the crew tried to start the engine, the system responded with warnings and a stubborn silence. The power came on, lights blinked, and then the whole sequence stopped like a door slammed shut. A senior technician named Mark tried first. He checked the obvious things and tapped on a panel like it owed him an answer. Another technician named Ben followed and ran a diagnostic cycle twice. A third technician named Ron checked cables and connections and muttered that the jet was acting strange. The hangar filled with the sound of irritated voices and quick footsteps. Leo stayed close but out of the way. He held a tray of tools and watched the screens. He watched the way Mark's jaw tightened. He watched Ben's hands move too fast, like speed could force the jet to obey. He watched Ron shake his head and look toward the office door as if someone important might walk in at any moment. Leo knew that feeling. When a rich owner was involved, every second became heavier. Mark stepped back and wiped sweat from his forehead. He said the system should have started clean and that the jet was in good condition yesterday. Ben said the numbers did not make sense. Ron said the fuel pressure was not holding the way it should. They went in circles and then stopped talking for a moment. The jet remained silent and unimpressed. Leo could almost feel the jet waiting, like it was daring them to notice the real issue. Leo did something he had learned long ago. He listened. He did not only listen with his ears. He watched the rhythm of the warning lights. He noticed how the screen paused at the same point each time. He noticed a soft clicking sound that happened a second before the sequence failed. He took a step forward and looked at the access panel by the side. Mark noticed him and gave a tired look. Mark told him to stay back because this was not a job for a kid. Leo nodded and stepped back, but his eyes stayed locked on the panel. The truth was that Leo did not see himself as a kid when it came to machines. He saw himself as someone who could learn, and learning was not owned by age. His father had taught him that when he was younger. His father had not been around for years now, but the lessons remained. Leo remembered sitting at a kitchen table with old manuals spread out like maps. He remembered his father pointing at diagrams and saying that every system was a story. He said you follow the story, not the noise. Leo had taken that advice into his bones. Mark and Ben tried again. The same failure happened at the same point. Ron sighed and walked away to make a call. The hangar grew quieter, but the pressure grew louder. Leo noticed that the clicking sound came from a specific spot near the fuel control module. It was faint, like a small complaint. Most people would not hear it in the chaos. Leo heard it clearly because he was not busy proving anything. He was busy understanding. He waited until Mark stepped away to talk to Ben. Then Leo moved in. He opened a small panel with a careful hand and checked the area with a flashlight. He saw a connector that looked secure but did not feel secure. It sat in place, yet the cable behind it had a slight twist, as if it had been pulled and returned without being reseated properly. He checked the line and felt a tiny vibration when the system attempted to start. He imagined the signal trying to pass and getting interrupted at the worst moment. It was not a big dramatic failure. It was the kind of small problem that made smart people angry because it looked like nothing. Leo reached into his pocket and pulled out a small tool. He loosened a clamp, adjusted the cable, and reseated the connector with firm pressure. He checked the routing and made sure there was no stress on the line. He then looked at a secondary valve that controlled flow during the start sequence. It was set within normal range but slightly off from the sweet spot. He adjusted it by a hair and took a slow breath. He was not guessing. He was following the story. Ben turned and saw Leo near the panel. Ben opened his mouth, ready to scold, but stopped when he noticed Leo's steady hands. Mark walked over with a hard look. Mark asked what Leo thought he was doing. Leo said he noticed a connector that was not seated right and a valve that was slightly out. Mark looked annoyed, but the fear of delay was stronger than pride. Mark told Leo to step away after he finished. Leo nodded and closed the panel carefully. Mark told Ben to run the start sequence again. Ben hesitated, then nodded and began the process. The lights blinked. The screen moved through the steps. The same pause came, but this time the clicking sound did not happen. The sequence continued. The engine coughed once, then caught like a singer finding the right note. A steady roar filled the hangar. The jet came alive. The sound was smooth, confident, and clean. For a few seconds no one spoke. Even Mark looked stunned. Ben stared at the screen like it had betrayed him by being so simple. Ron returned from his call and froze when he heard the engine running. Ron asked what happened. Mark did not answer right away. He looked at Leo with a strange mix of irritation and surprise. Leo stepped back and rubbed his hands together, trying to act normal. He had not done it to show off. He had done it because he could not stand watching a good machine get misunderstood. But he also knew what usually came next. Either someone would pretend it was their idea, or someone would decide the kid had been lucky. Leo had lived with that pattern for a long time. He kept his face calm and his eyes down. At that moment, the hangar door opened with a heavy sound. A group of people entered, led by a tall man in a dark coat. His shoes were spotless, and his posture made the room feel smaller. Conversations stopped without anyone being told to stop. Even the senior workers straightened their backs. Ron whispered that the owner had arrived. Mark swallowed and adjusted his shirt. The man walked forward, his gaze sharp and quiet. This was Mr. Gray, the CEO who owned the jet. He did not smile. He did not waste movements. He looked at the aircraft, then at the technicians, then at the running engine. He asked if the jet was ready. Ron said yes and tried to sound confident. Mr. Gray's eyes did not stay on Ron for long. They moved across the group like a scanner. Then Mr. Gray's eyes landed on Leo. Leo felt the weight of that look. He kept his hands at his sides. The pilot wing necklace rested against his chest, tucked partly under his shirt but still visible. It was small and silver, with 2 wings and a center circle. It was not fancy. It was old and worn at the edges, like it had been held many times. Leo wore it every day because it was one of the few things he still had from his father. Mr. Gray took one step closer. His eyes fixed on the necklace. His face changed in a way that made the air turn cold. He stopped moving, as if the ground had pulled him into place. And the busy hangar fell completely silent. Mr. Gray stood still for a long moment as the engine sound filled the hangar with steady power. His eyes did not move from the silver pilot wing necklace resting on Leo's chest. The noise around him faded as memory rushed in like a strong wind. The shape of the wings was familiar. The small scratch near the edge was familiar. He had seen that exact necklace years ago in a very different place. Leo noticed the silence and felt his throat tighten. He had seen powerful people before, but something about this man felt heavier. The workers around him waited for instructions, unsure if they should speak or remain still. Mark cleared his throat softly but did not dare interrupt. Ben shifted his weight and looked from Leo to Mr. Gray with confusion. Ron stood near the office door, frozen like a statue. Mr. Gray finally spoke, and his voice was calm but sharp. He asked Leo where he got the necklace. The question landed softly but carried weight. Leo swallowed and answered honestly. He said it belonged to his father. He said his father gave it to him when he was young and told him to keep it close. Leo's voice did not shake, but his chest felt tight. Mr. Gray took another step closer and asked his father's name. The hanger felt colder somehow. Leo hesitated for a brief moment. He was used to people asking questions and then losing interest. Still he answered and spoke the name quietly. The name echoed in Mr. Gray's mind like a door opening. The CEO closed his eyes for a second. When he opened them, something had changed. His expression was no longer distant. It was focused and heavy with thought. He looked at Leo not as a worker but as a connection to the past. He asked how old Leo was. Leo said 17. Mr. Gray nodded slowly as if adding numbers in his head. He asked how Leo knew so much about aircraft systems. Leo answered in simple words. He said his father taught him. He said they spent many nights studying manuals and old parts. He said his father believed understanding mattered more than speed. The words came naturally because they were true. Leo did not try to impress. He only explained. Mark finally spoke and said that Leo had helped restart the jet. Mr. Gray turned his head slightly toward Mark, but kept his eyes on Leo. He asked exactly what Leo fixed. Mark explained the connector and valve with professional respect. Mr. Gray listened carefully and nodded once. He looked toward the jet and then back to Leo. Mr. Gray asked everyone else to give them space. Ron hesitated but obeyed. Mark and Ben exchanged looks and stepped back. The hangar grew quieter except for the steady engine sound. Leo felt every heartbeat in his ears. He wondered if he had done something wrong by touching the jet without permission. He stood straight and waited. Mr. Gray spoke again and his tone softened slightly. He said he knew Leo's father. He said Leo's father was one of the best pilots he had ever worked with. He said that man had saved a flight full of people during a dangerous situation years ago. Leo's eyes widened, but he did not interrupt. This was the first time someone outside his family spoke about his father with such certainty. Mr. Gray continued and said Leo's father had a rare way of thinking. He said he could feel what a plane needed before the instruments showed it. He said many people did not understand that kind of skill. Leo felt something warm and painful rise in his chest. He had grown up with stories half told and questions unanswered. Hearing respect in this voice felt new. Leo asked quietly where his father went. The question escaped before he could stop it. Mr. Gray paused and chose his words carefully. He said there were missions that asked for everything from a person. He said some people gave more than they ever got back. He did not say more than that. Leo nodded slowly. He understood without details. Mr. Gray looked again at the necklace and said that he remembered giving those wings to Leo's father after a long flight. He said it was not a reward but a sign of trust. Leo's fingers curled around the necklace without thinking. He had never known where it came from. Now it felt heavier with meaning. Mr. Gray asked Leo what he wanted to do with his life. The question surprised him. No one important had asked him that before. Leo thought for a moment and answered honestly. He said he wanted to work with aircraft. He said he wanted to understand them and keep people safe. He said he did not care about titles. He cared about doing the job right. The CEO studied his face and nodded again. He said skill like that should not stay hidden. He said talent needed guidance, not silence. He said opportunities should be earned but also offered when deserved. Leo listened carefully. His heart beat faster but his face stayed calm. Mr. Gray told Leo that fixing the jet was not a small thing. He said many experienced technicians missed the problem because they rushed. He said Leo listened instead. That mattered. Mark shifted uncomfortably nearby but did not argue. Ben stared at the floor. Ron watched from a distance with wide eyes. Mr. Gray said he wanted to know more about Leo's background. Leo explained his life in simple words. He spoke about school in the morning and work in the hangar in the evening. He spoke about helping his mother at home. He spoke about learning from books and broken parts. He did not complain. He only described. The CEO listened without interrupting. When Leo finished, Mr. Gray took a slow breath. He said the world often overlooked quiet people. He said that was a mistake. He said Leo reminded him of someone who never demanded attention but earned respect anyway. Mr. Gray then said something that made the room feel lighter and heavier at the same time. He said this would not end here. He said he would return and talk again. He said Leo should keep learning and keep asking questions. He said this hangar would hear Leo's name more often. Leo did not know what to say. He nodded and said thank you. The words felt small compared to the moment. Mr. Gray gave one last look at the necklace and then turned toward the jet. He gave instructions to prepare for departure. The workers jumped back into motion. As Mr. Gray walked away, Leo stood still for a moment. The engine continued its steady sound. The hangar returned to life with footsteps and voices. But something inside Leo had changed. A door he did not know existed had cracked open. He touched the necklace again and looked at the jet with new eyes. He felt his father's presence not as a memory but as a guide. The day that began with silence was now filled with possibility. And Leo knew this was only the beginning. The next few days passed slowly for Leo, but the hangar felt different now. People still walked the same paths and the machines still made the same sounds, but the air carried a new kind of attention. Some workers looked at Leo with curiosity. Some avoided his eyes. Mark spoke less sharply. Ben asked more questions than before. Ron watched from a distance like someone waiting for a change in weather. Leo kept his routine steady. He arrived early and left late. He cleaned tools and checked parts. He studied manuals during breaks. He did not talk about Mr. Gray or the necklace or the conversation. He knew moments like that could disappear if treated too loudly. He focused on work because work had always been honest with him. At home, Leo's mother noticed the change. She saw the way Leo sat straighter at the table. She saw the way he held his necklace when thinking. One evening she asked if something happened at work. Leo smiled slightly and said he fixed a plane and met someone important. He did not explain more. His mother nodded and said she was proud. That was enough. 3 days later, a black car rolled into the hangar parking area. The sound of its tires on the ground turned heads. Ron stepped outside first and straightened his jacket. Mark stopped mid-sentence. Ben wiped his hands. Leo looked up from a checklist and felt a quiet tension return. Mr. Gray stepped out of the car alone this time. He wore a lighter coat and his face looked less distant. He walked with purpose but not haste. He did not head straight to the jet. He walked directly toward Leo. Leo felt every eye in the hangar move toward him. He took a breath and stood still. Mr. Gray stopped in front of him and nodded. He asked how Leo was doing. Leo answered politely and said he was learning every day. Mr. Gray said that was good. He said learning should never stop. He then asked Leo to walk with him. Ron opened his mouth to object, but stopped when Mr. Gray raised a hand. The two walked toward a quiet corner of the hangar. Mr. Gray asked Leo many questions. He asked how Leo approached problems. He asked what Leo did when he did not understand something. Leo answered honestly. He said he broke problems into small parts. He said he listened before acting. He said he was not afraid to admit when he did not know. Mr. Gray nodded after each answer. Mr. Gray then shared something unexpected. He said that many talented people fail because they stop listening. He said skill without patience becomes noise. He said Leo's father understood that well. Hearing his father mentioned again made Leo's heart tighten, but he stayed calm. Mr. Gray told Leo that he had reviewed the maintenance report from the jet. He said it confirmed what Mark described. He said Leo action saved time and prevented future issues. He said that kind of thinking mattered more than speed. Leo thanked him quietly. Then Mr. Gray asked Leo a serious question. He asked if Leo wanted to be trained properly. He asked if Leo wanted access to real education in aviation systems. The words hung in the air. Leo felt his pulse quicken. He asked what that meant. Mr. Gray explained slowly. He said he could arrange formal training alongside work. He said Leo could learn from engineers and pilots. He said it would be demanding and fair. He said there would be no shortcuts. Leo listened with full attention. Leo asked one thing in return. He asked if he would be judged by his work alone. He asked if mistakes would be lessons and not labels. Mr. Gray smiled slightly and said that was the only way learning worked. That answer settled something deep inside Leo. Ron approached cautiously and said the jet was ready for inspection. Mr. Gray nodded and turned back to Leo. He said they would speak again soon. He said Leo should prepare himself. He said opportunity arrived quietly and left quickly. Leo understood. As Mr. Gray walked away, Mark stepped closer to Leo. Mark looked uncomfortable but honest. He said what Leo did with the jet was impressive. He said he underestimated him. The words were not perfect, but they were real. Leo nodded and thanked him. Ben asked Leo how he noticed the issue. Leo explained calmly. Ben listened and admitted he rushed. Ron watched them and said nothing. The hangar slowly returned to normal motion, but the balance had shifted. That evening Leo stayed late. He sat inside the jet with the engine off and the lights dim. He placed his hand on the control panel and closed his eyes. He remembered sitting beside his father years ago. He remembered his father's voice saying that machines reflected the people who handled them. Care created calm. Rushing created noise. Leo realized something important. He was no longer just surviving. He was being seen. That thought scared him more than being ignored. Being seen meant expectations. It meant responsibility. But it also meant growth. Over the next weeks Leo's schedule changed. Mr. Gray team arranged classes and sessions. Leo studied diagrams that once felt unreachable. He asked questions and wrote notes. Some days were overwhelming. Some nights he fell asleep with books open beside him. He struggled but did not quit. Some workers supported him. Some tested him. Leo stayed steady. He knew not everyone would accept change. He focused on progress, not approval. The necklace stayed close to his chest through it all. One afternoon Leo faced a complex system issue during training. He made a mistake. The instructor noticed and stopped him. Leo felt heat rise in his face. He expected judgment. Instead the instructor asked what Leo learned from the error. Leo answered honestly. The lesson stayed with him longer than success would have. Mr. Gray checked in often but never hovered. He watched from a distance and listened to reports. He saw Leo effort and consistency. He saw his father qualities reflected clearly. Late one evening Leo stood outside the hangar alone. The sky was dark and quiet. A plane passed overhead leaving a faint line of light. Leo touched the necklace and felt gratitude and determination mix inside him. He understood now that the necklace was not just a memory. It was a reminder. A reminder to listen. A reminder to work with care. A reminder that quiet effort could open doors no one expected. The path ahead was not easy, but it was real. And Leo walked it with steady steps and open eyes, knowing that the story was still unfolding. The final months of the year arrived quietly, and Leo felt the weight of change in every step he took. The hangar no longer felt like a place where he hid in corners. It felt like a place where he belonged. People greeted him by name now. Some asked for help. Some watched him work with careful eyes. Leo stayed humble and focused because he knew attention could fade if he lost himself. Mr. Gray training program pushed Leo harder than anything before. The days were long and the lessons were deep. Leo learned systems that once felt impossible to reach. He learned how small choices could affect entire flights. He learned why patience mattered more than pride. Some nights he went home exhausted but satisfied. His mother noticed the tired smile on his face and knew her son was building something real. One morning the hangar prepared for an important flight. The jet that once refused to start stood ready again. This time Leo was part of the final inspection team. Mark checked the exterior. Ben handled diagnostics. Leo focused on system balance and startup flow. They worked together without tension. When the engine started smoothly, the sound felt like confirmation, not surprise. Mr. Gray arrived later that day and watched from a distance. He saw how Leo moved with calm confidence. He saw how others listened when Leo spoke. He saw the quiet leadership forming without force. Mr. Gray did not interrupt. He waited. After the inspection, Mr. Gray called Leo aside. He spoke plainly and said that growth came with responsibility. He said Leo had earned trust through consistency. He said the next step would be bigger. Leo listened carefully and nodded. Mr. Gray explained that a new training position was opening within his aviation division. It would allow Leo to continue learning while contributing directly to operations. It would be demanding and visible. Mr. Gray asked if Leo was ready for that challenge. Leo took a breath and said yes without hesitation. The decision was shared with the team later that day. Reactions varied. Some smiled. Some stayed quiet. Mark shook Leo's hand firmly. Ben congratulated him openly. Ron nodded with respect. The hangar accepted the change in its own way. Weeks passed and Leo stepped into his new role with care. He asked questions when unsure. He offered help when able. He made mistakes and corrected them. He listened more than he spoke. Slowly trust settled into routine. One afternoon a young worker joined the hangar for the first time. He stood near the wall holding tools nervously. Leo noticed the look because he had worn it himself once. Leo walked over and explained a simple task patiently. The worker relaxed. A small cycle completed itself. Late one evening Leo stayed behind after everyone left. He walked through the quiet hangar and rested his hand on the jet that started it all. The metal felt cool and solid. He thought about his father and the lessons that guided him. He thought about the necklace and what it represented now. Leo understood that success was not a sudden moment. It was a chain of small, honest choices. He understood that being seen was not about praise. It was about responsibility. That knowledge grounded him. The next day Leo stood on the runway as the jet prepared for departure. He wore a clean uniform and carried a checklist. The pilot nodded to him with respect. As the jet lifted into the sky, Leo watched it rise with steady eyes. Mr. Gray stood nearby and observed quietly. He knew the real achievement was not the flight. It was the path that led there. He saw his old friend reflection in Leo's calm posture and thoughtful gaze. The legacy continued without needing to be announced. As the jet disappeared into the distance, Leo touched the pilot wing necklace and smiled. He was no longer invisible. He was no longer waiting. He was moving forward with purpose and care. The hangar doors closed behind him as the day continued. Engines hummed and tools moved. Life carried on. But one thing had changed forever. Leo had found his place.